Let me tell you a little parable that didn't make it into the Bible simply because Jesus hadn't heard it yet. If he had heard it, it would be somewhere in Luke. It's a story all of us know, one of the wonderful fables about a young woman whose name was Cinderella. If there was ever a person who identified with Cinderella, it was me. I absolutely felt like the whole world had gone to a party and I was home clean and ashes, chained to the furnace. Built like the broom that they swept with. And I felt miserable and twisted and contorted and angry, and I was a Christian. I had played fair and life was having fun, and I was sitting on the porch dying. Now you know the story of Cinderella. She was a scrub girl with this old weird ugly stepmother. Hey, you know this. Me, when they look in the dictionary under the word ugly, there was this woman's picture and no writing. That's all you needed to say. If this woman had had antlers, you'd have hunted her. This is ugly. You would not mind coming home with her tied on your fender. You just didn't want anybody to see her riding up in the seat with you. Ugly. Lots of ugly. Serious ugly. Basic ugly. Do I have you reading ugly? Is that right? Now she had two daughters that were also ugly. Hard for ugly to have pretty. Easy for ugly to have ugly. Twice. Well, the word had gone out. The king was quite upset because his son, who's called the prince, was getting ready to inherit the throne, and he was 35 years old and single. And you cannot leave a kingdom to a single adult. So the king decided we got to find a wife for the prince. Somewhere there is a Diane for my Charles. And we will put their pictures on the cookie boxes of our country. So in order to find the loveliest woman in the land, they had what Baptists used to worry about called a fancy ball, a party, a hoopla, a sock hop if you please. Now I've just heard about those. I didn't get to go. When I was growing up, that's one thing they didn't want you doing. Going to dances. If you dropped a bowling ball on your foot, don't hop around, they'll think you're dancing. You just stand still and share your witness. Rejoice! But they were having one of these kind of parties. The king got together an orchestra and they were out there just playing the cello and the flute, and they had a clarinet guy and a piano, and a bass, Now this is going on, and the word is going out across the country that they're having the big ball looking for the lovely woman that will become the Princess Diana of this village. Well, they came from everywhere. Tom McCann's had run out of shoes. Women had sore thumbs all across the land from putting hems in those big balloon skirts. Girls had glitter on their eyelids. Hairspray was going at $2 a can and somebody was getting rich. They had purple fingernails and they had the whole deal. They all showed up at the castle and they hit it like an avalanche, hoping to meet the prince. And the prince walked out and looked at that sea of ugly women and thought, oh no. I was hoping for blue jays and got penguins. This is terrible. Well, they started playing music. Boom, 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 ching, ching, da, 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 da. And the prince is dancing with all these mooses. Meanwhile, back at the house, Cinderella's in the basement sniffing. She had wanted to go so badly. But they locked the door, chained her in the basement. She's got to clean up the furnace. And those two grotesque stepsisters had gone to the ball. While she's sitting here on the bottom step, sniffing and feeling sorry for herself, you hear these little wind chimes, ting-ling-ling-ling. And bloop, here's this little fairy godmother. What do you say, Cinderella? Not much, fairy godmother. See, when you live in fairy tales, you get used to these little dumpy women just dropping in and out every now and then. Good to see you again. How you been? Just fine, thank you very much. What you doing here? Well, I came to get you ready to go to the party, huh? I said I came to get you ready to go to the party. Look, boy, she has locked that door. The windows are that high in the basement. Forget it. She said, honey, I'm in the party getting ready business. What color you want to wear? Hurry, I got to move around some tonight. So what do you mean? She says, you want to wear blue, pink, white, light green. Name your color. Let's go. Look, godmother, I told you she's locked the door. I said, what color you want? Light blue. Got one of those little wands with a star on it, and it just shimmers in the dark, you know, whang, and hits her with it. Wow, blue. Woo! Look at that. Don't know, what do I say? Well, she looked and her nails were done. She had on little glass shoes and she could see her toenails wiggle. She's embarrassed because she, looked good, Fairy godmother said, now let's get you to the party. She said, I tried to tell you she locked the door. Held up the wand. She said, honey, if I can do that, I can do this, okay? She's going to whang and pump out on the lawn. How'd you do that? Trust me. Tough little old woman. She looks like a fire plug wearing tennis shoes. You know, one of these little like. She said, now look, I'm going to put you in this coach. Bing, hits a pumpkin, bloop, there's a coach. How? Wow. That was a Corvette of her day, sitting right there. They got mice and all these little critters going to drive it and pull it. And she says, now, honey, the only deal is you got to be home by midnight because I am tuckered and I cannot stay up and wait on you. By midnight. Okay. So she gets into pumpkin, they slam the door by midnight. Got you, midnight. Well, they go roaring up to the castle. Cinderella got out feeling a little awkward, but nice. People out on the curb watching go, ooh, waha, who's that, Good evening, she just. Meantime, inside, the prince is really ticked off. Looks like an ugly convention. There hadn't been this much grim in the world before, all in one place. Volcanoes look like this inside before they get hot. Ugly. Ugly's just oozing around him. Ugly. And the prince is being avalanched by ugly. And the king is sitting back up on his throne going, this was not a very good idea, dear. She said, I told you this country is full of ugly eligibles. Well, the flute player was about worn out. He just fluted all he wanted to do. And all of a sudden, he just stuck it in his ear. Because at the head of the stairs was Cinderella. Looking good. The whole place got quiet. People stopped in the middle of dancing and just stared. And there she was. Did you ever have one of those times when you just knew without a mirror that it looked good? Boy, that's how she felt. And the prince is down here going, and the king is leaning over going, pick that one, you weirdo, pick that one, pick that one. If you don't pick that, you can't have the country. When she had everybody's undivided attention, Cinderella came down the stairs. Now, oh, wow, look at it. And the prince is going, all right. She strolled across the floor, all the way down the stairs. Her head had never bobbed. She was floating. She walked right up to him, looked him in the eye, and kind of smiled and said, "What do you say, Prince?" And the prince went, blah, 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 blah. She said, "That's nice." He said, would you care to dance?" "Why, certainly, sir, and you may lead." Well, boy, they all got on it this time. Boom, wee, and it was just a great party. Everybody got in a big circle and watched the prince and the lovely girl go, and it was just neat. And they got to doing some of that turn around and get back later dancing. You've probably seen American Bandstand. Along about 5 minutes to midnight, the prince did a turn and reached back to get her hand, and she was not there. And he turns around and says, "Y'all, you know, real good looking and blue. You know, have you see what happened to her?" And he heard a rustle at the head of the stairs and glanced up just in time to see Cinderella darting out the door. He's going, "Yeah!" Didn't get her phone number. Well, boy, he goes charging upstairs in those little shoes with the curls on the front, but he was flying. Turns and digs out the deal, and out on the porch sees a pumpkin going around the corner. Turned around and started back in. He hit something with his foot. Clink, tinkle, tinkle, tinkle. Reached over and picked it up as a little tiny glass slipper. On the side of the building, on castles like this, they have those torches hanging at a 45-degree angle, flickering in the night. So he walked over under it to see Tom McCann. Strange name for a woman. Size 4 AA. It came to him in a flash of brilliance. There could not be that many beautiful women in the world that wore a 4 AA. So he decided, see, there's only one here. What did I tell you? And she's wearing Adidas. So it's not going to work, dear. It's not going to work. So what he did was to go in and get him a town crier. That's a guy that wears a funny hat and a big bell. And they start through the streets of the village day after day, ringing the bell. Sounds like Avon calling, bling, 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 blong, bling, bling. And the bell ringer out front is sounding the call. Prince is looking for a woman with a dinky hoof, bling, blong, bling, blong, bling, blong. All the women in the country knew about it, soaking their feet in pickle juice. Draw them down. House after house, foot after foot. He was trying to put a watermelon in the keyhole. Big old feet, little bitty shoe. You think ugly's one thing, big feet's something else. You get ugly with big feet and it's a long day. Finally came to the end of a cul-de-sac where the road turned around and it said dead end. Might just hire you to go laugh for me. That's great. He's going to do it. His number's 32. He's got it made. Down at the end of the street, they came to Cinderella's old stepmother's house, and the prince went up and bling blang, and she opened the door. "Behold, Prince." Said, "Yes, ma'am, I am your local prince, and I'm here on a very special mission. I found this tiny slipper, and I'm looking for the woman that fits it." "Well, it could be either of my daughters." "May I please see them?" "Yes." So he walked in and said, "Oh, heavens, I've seen them." Well, if there's every time your eyes need a Band-Aid, this is it. Oh, ooh. I know where that ugly came from, ma'am. Definitely your daughters. Well, the prince sat them down and they forced and shoved and stood up and tried. could not get their feet in the slipper. Whew. And it was there that I started sensing something unusual about this prince. Something that I started to appreciate in him. It's a little silly when you think about dancing with all these old grim-looking women. But now, look at him. So desperately searching for the woman that filled his dreams, that he's trying to slip her on all those ugly, big-footed mooses. See, ugly could wear a 4AA. It could. There could be a dinky hoof on a grim carcass. And when you start thinking about it, his heart is driving him to search for the woman that fits that shoe, and he's more concerned about the foot than the face. That's kind of neat. How often have we, in working with young people in churches and in high schools and other places, tended to look after those who came down the stairs in the lovely blue dresses? How often have we avoided those who had the big ugly feet? When you really love with all your heart, you try it on every foot. You try it on every foot. You try it on every foot. And sometimes it fits, and it's beautiful. He turns to the old ugly stepmother and says, "Could there perhaps be any other lovely women in your home?" "Well, not really. I've got this stepdaughter that cleans the cellar. That's about it. I have vowed that I would try the slipper on every foot of every available young woman in the country till I find the... Please send her to me." Well, see, she didn't get to go. Just these two beautiful women went. I didn't let her go. She's dirty and grimy. I said, "Please send her to me." "But Prince, I told you, I like the cellar myself. She did not go." He pulled out his Prince badge and he said, "Lady, you see that badge?" "Yes." "I'm your local prince." "Yes." "Send her to me." Very well. Goes over and unlocks the door and opens it, and Cinderella fell in. She'd been listening at the keyhole. There she is, blushing with old grimy feet, sniffing, But somehow in the background you hear the violins of Forever After start to tune up. At the movie, the lion's getting ready to growl. And he looked at her, and she looked at him, and through the grit and the grime and the cinders, which is where her name comes from, Cinderella, out of all that grit was the sparkle of recognition, because you can put soot on the face, but it's hard to hide eyes of love. And she quietly and bashfully sat down on the sofa, and he knelt before her, and it fit. Ah, great. Happily ever after. Ta-da-ta-da-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Just great. Boy, the lion can growl now. It's time. And it was at that moment, sitting quietly one night about 11:30 at my typewriter working, it was at that moment that I suddenly saw something about Cinderella I had never seen before, and the gospel began to percolate in my soul a bit more vibrantly. Hope began to spring eternal in my dreams as well. It suddenly hit me that most of us have always thought of Cinderella as the scrub girl who became the princess. If I understand that story, and I think I do, it's really trying to tell us that Cinderella is a princess who had been trapped in a cellar. What happens when the prince comes to her? He brings a glass slipper that sets her free to everything she was intended to be. In church, we use a word called grace. And I've heard preachers talk about it as God's unmerited favor. And even if you understand that, you don't really understand that. Unmerited favor. I'll tell you about grace, and I can explain it better than unmerited favor. Grace is God coming to you with a slipper that fits. God calls out of you everything good He has put into you, created in His image, to adore Him, to serve Him, to worship Him, to enjoy one another. That's what He has created us to be, to do, to feel, to experience. And grace is God calling out of me everything He's put into me. And joy is when you let it happen. All of a sudden it's the castle and not the cellar. All of a sudden it's where you should be, not where you should not be. And another slice off of that same piece of cake. You begin to discover that most of our lives we have heard from the pulpits and from most of the preaching and the worship life and the teaching of the church, all those things we have to do before God can love us. The story of the gospel is that before we ever knew Him, He died for us. That God in His incredible love has come to us to seek, to save, to redeem that which is lost. Every time He does, we say Good Friday, and every time we do, He says Easter. You cannot keep Him behind the tombstone forever. God loves us. He comes back to us. He calls out of us every good and perfect gift. What do I want you to discover this weekend about hope and yourself? I want you to learn, first of all, that no matter how badly you may feel you are trapped in the cellar of life, He comes to you with a slipper that fits. And He loves you before you ever say, I love you to Him. Nothing you can do to earn that. It is His gift. The second thing I want you to learn to do is to stand at the head of the stairs and know it looks good. To know that what God has created is beautiful. That what God has created you to be is splendid. This is a little verse that didn't make it in the Bible, but if they ever open it for nominations, I'm going to try to get it in. A wonderful quote. I saw it first done by a 14-year-old girl at my church in crewel embroidery, and it hung on our pulpit on a youth Sunday, and I've never forgotten it. I am me. I am good. Because God don't make no junk. He didn't when He made you. He didn't when He loves you. And He doesn't intend for you to make junk out of your own life. Would you hear that good word? There is hope in Jesus Christ. He comes to us with a slipper that fits. He calls out of me every good thing He has put into me, created me in His image, and He loves all that He has made. My good friend and pastor for many years, John Claypool, had one of the most wonderful sentences. I used to hear him say it frequently and wept every time. God loves you as though you were the only person in all this world to love. And He loves all of you like He loves each of you. Is that not the gospel? That's what I hope you hear this week, because it is here that there is hope. God loves me whether I ask Him to or not. His slipper fits. He sets me free to what He created me to be. If that is not hope, I do not know where it could be.
That dreaded disease, and her money brought physicians, but only Jesus could bring relief, and though her last thread of hope it was worn down to a string, her heart held on to faith till she could touch him with her hand. 'Cause when you're hanging by a thread, still you can climb life's mountains. Though the cliffs are rough and jagged, you can go. If you should slip and reach ropes in, you'll find the hem of his garment. So don't let go of that last thread of hope. And is that you, just hanging on to a frayed and a fragile faith? And are you clinging to the rocks above a canyon of dismay? Reach out for that lifeline. It will never break in two. And hold fast and don't lose heart. For once again, God will pull you through. 'Cause when you're hanging by a thread, still you can climb life's mountains. Though the cliffs are up and jagged, you can go. If you should slip and reach ropes in, you'll find the hem of his garment. So don't let go of that last thread of hope. If you should slip and reach ropes in, you'll find the hem of his garment. So don't let go of that last thread of hope.
Have y'all enjoyed our family in Forrest, Arkansas?